You chose to watch this video, or did you? YouTube recommended it. The thumbnail was designed to make you click. The title was written to trigger curiosity. The first line of the description was crafted to get you past the preview. You thought you made a choice. You executed a decision that someone else engineered. That is marketing. And it is happening to you every single minute of every single day. 20 minutes. The whole thing. Let's go. What marketing actually is. Most people think marketing is advertising, a billboard, a TV commercial, a sponsored post clogging up your Instagram feed. That is not marketing. That is the last 3% of marketing. Marketing is everything that happens before the ad. It is deciding who your customer is, what they actually want, what they are afraid of, what they tell themselves when they look in the mirror. It is building a product, a price, a place, and a message so perfectly matched to a human being that when they finally see the ad, buying feels like the obvious thing to do. The ad is just the moment you ask. Everything before that is the reason they say yes. Here is the definition that actually matters. Marketing is the art of making people want things, and sometimes making people want things that did not exist before. That second part is where it gets interesting, because the most powerful marketing in history did not sell products. It sold realities. It created needs that nobody had, built traditions out of thin air, turned ordinary objects into symbols of identity, love, and status. And once you see how it works, you cannot unsee it. The 4 things that actually drive buying decisions. Before the stories, you need the framework. Every buying decision a human being makes comes down to 4 things. Identity. People buy things that reflect who they are or who they want to be, not the product, the version of themselves that owns it. Nobody buys a Range Rover for the 4-wheel drive. They buy the person they become when they pull up in a Range Rover. Emotion. Decisions feel logical. They are not. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio studied patients with damage to the emotional centers of their brain. They could reason perfectly, list pros and cons, analyze options, compare prices, weigh trade-offs. On paper, they were better decision makers than you or me, but they could not decide. They sat paralyzed, unable to choose between a blue pen and a black pen, unable to pick a date for their next appointment, not because they lacked intelligence, but because without emotion, the brain has no mechanism for choosing. Every purchase you make is an emotional decision dressed up as a rational one. The logic comes after. To justify a choice, your feelings already made. Social belonging. Humans are tribal. For most of our history, being excluded from the group meant death. That instinct never left. We buy what our tribe buys. We wear what signals membership. We avoid what marks us as outsiders. The product is often just a membership badge. Loss aversion. People are twice as motivated by the fear of losing something as by the prospect of gaining something. This is not opinion. It is one of the most replicated findings in behavioral science. Marketing that tells you what you will lose if you do not buy outperforms marketing that tells you what you will gain, every time. These 4 drivers are the engine underneath every campaign you have ever responded to. Now, let me show you what they look like when someone uses them to build something from nothing. Red Bull. The year is 1982. An Austrian businessman named Dietrich Mateschitz is on a work trip to Thailand. He is jet-lagged. Someone hands him a local drink called Krating Dang, a cheap, syrupy, caffeinated tonic sold in small pharmacies and market stalls across Southeast Asia. Truck drivers drink it to stay awake. Factory workers drink it on night shifts. It is not a premium product. It is not aspirational. It is the drink of the exhausted working class. Mateschitz tastes it. His jet lag disappears. He spends the next 3 years trying to license the formula, modify it for Western tastes, and figure out how to sell it in Europe. In 1987, he launches Red Bull in Austria. It fails immediately, not because the product is bad, because nobody understands what it is. There is no category for it. Energy drink is not a thing yet. People do not know if it is a medicine, a mixer, a soft drink, or something else entirely. So Mateschitz does something nobody had done before. He does not sell the drink. He sells the lifestyle. But he does not start with Super Bowl ads. He starts in nightclubs and university campuses. Red Bull hires students to drive around in cars with a giant can strapped to the roof, handing out free samples at parties, at libraries during exam season, at any place where young people were tired and needed energy. They left empty cans on tables in trendy bars so it looked like people were already drinking it. They gave it to DJs and bartenders for free so it showed up behind the counter before anyone had ever paid for it. They manufactured the appearance of demand before real demand existed. Then they scaled it. Red Bull starts sponsoring extreme sports events, cliff diving, motocross, air racing, athletes nobody else wanted to touch because the events were too niche, too dangerous, too weird. Red Bull does not just put their logo on a banner, they fund entire sports. They create the Red Bull Air Race. They create Red Bull Rampage. Eventually, they buy Formula One teams. They own sports franchises. They become the brand that represents the outer edge of human performance. And the drink? The drink is just the thing you consume to access that identity. Here's the number that tells the whole story. Red Bull sells roughly 12.5 billion cans per year. The liquid inside costs approximately 9 cents to produce. A can retails for $2 or more in most markets. They are not selling you an energy drink. They are selling you the feeling of being someone who pushes limits, someone who jumps out of planes and wins races and does not accept ordinary. The drink is $2. The identity is priceless. And it worked because Mateschitz understood something fundamental. In a world where products are largely interchangeable, the only thing that truly differentiates is meaning. Red Bull did not win on taste. Every taste test showed people preferred competitor drinks. They won on story, on identity, on the world they built around a can of liquid. That is marketing at its most powerful. De Beers and the diamond. Here is a question. Why do people give diamond engagement rings? Most people would say tradition. It has always been that way. It is romantic. It is what you do. None of that is true. Before 1938, diamond engagement rings were not standard practice anywhere in the Western world. Some wealthy people gave them. Most did not. Engagement gifts were varied, practical, modest. Then De Beers hired an advertising agency called N.W. Ayer. De Beers controlled roughly 90% of the world's diamond supply. The problem was demand. Diamonds had no compelling reason to exist in most people's lives. They were expensive, unnecessary, and had no practical function. N.W. Ayer's brief was simple and audacious. Create a cultural tradition. Not advertise a product. Create a tradition. They placed diamonds in films. They briefed fashion editors. They sent diamonds to celebrities. They worked with schools, giving lectures on romance and the significance of gifts. They created the entire cultural infrastructure around the idea that a diamond was the appropriate symbol of lasting love. And then in 1947, a copywriter named Francis Geraghty wrote 4 words that became the most successful advertising slogan in history. A diamond is forever. Not just a tagline, a philosophical statement. Diamonds do not deteriorate. Love should not either. The permanence of the stone became a metaphor for the permanence of commitment. The campaign ran for decades. It rewired an entire culture. By 1965, 80% of American engagement rings contained a diamond, up from almost nothing in 1938. De Beers had not found a new market. They had manufactured one, built a tradition from scratch using film, fashion, education, and 4 words. But here's the part they do not tell you. Diamonds are not rare. De Beers controls supply artificially. They mine diamonds, stockpile them, and release them slowly to maintain the illusion of scarcity. The market price of a diamond is almost entirely a construct. And the resale value? A diamond ring worth $3,000 at retail is worth $300 the moment you leave the shop. It loses 90% of its value instantly. People know this. They buy anyway. Because De Beers did not sell a gemstone. They sold the proof of love. And you cannot put a price on that. That is what marketing does at its most sophisticated. It does not compete on features or price. It attaches meaning to an object so deeply that the object becomes the only acceptable vessel for that meaning. The moment you accept the premise, the price is irrelevant. The Marlboro Man. In 1954, Marlboro cigarettes had a problem. They were considered a woman's cigarette. The Marlboro Man. In 1954, Marlboro cigarettes had a problem. They were considered a woman's cigarette. The filter tip had been introduced as a health measure designed to reduce tar inhalation, but filtered cigarettes were seen as soft, gentle, feminine. Real men smoked unfiltered cigarettes and did not worry about their lungs. Marlboro's sales were negligible. They needed to reposition entirely. They hired the advertiser Leo Burnett. Burnett's solution was not subtle. If the product is seen as feminine, make it the most aggressively masculine thing on the market. He created the Marlboro Man, a cowboy. Rugged, weathered, solitary. Often shown on horseback against vast open landscapes. Not speaking, not smiling. Just existing in a world of dust and sky and freedom. No product features, no health claims, no price promotion, just a man and a cigarette. And everything that man represented. Within 1 year, Marlboro's sales increased by 5,000%. Within a decade, Marlboro was the best-selling cigarette brand in the world, a position it held for over 40 years. Here is what makes this story darker than the others. The Marlboro Man campaign killed people, not metaphorically. The men who played the Marlboro Man in the advertisements died of smoking-related illnesses. David McLean, Wayne McLaren, both lung cancer. Both became anti-smoking advocates before they died. The campaign knew what it was selling was lethal. It sold it anyway, and it sold it by manufacturing a masculine identity so compelling that millions of men chose lung cancer over feeling soft. That is the darkest version of what marketing can do. When identity is the product, logic stops working. People do not weigh the cost. They protect the self-image. Men smoked Marlboro not despite knowing it might kill them, sometimes because of it. The risk was part of the identity. How they do it to you now. 3 stories from the 20th century. Red Bull gave you identity through sports. De Beers gave you tradition through culture. Marlboro gave you masculinity through imagery. All 3 took years to build. Millions of dollars. Massive infrastructure. Now let me show you how a company did something similar in a fraction of the time. Shein, a Chinese fast fashion company that most people over 30 have never heard of. In 2020, Shein was a mid-sized online retailer. By 2022, it was the most downloaded shopping app in the world, worth roughly $100 billion. They did not use billboards. They did not use TV. They did not hire a single celebrity for a traditional campaign. They used micro-influencers, thousands of them, women with 10,000 to 50,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram. Not famous enough to be expensive, famous enough to feel like a friend. Shein sent them free clothes. The influencers posted haul videos. Millions of young women watched someone who looked like them, in a bedroom that looked like theirs, trying on outfits that cost $4 each, social belonging and identity at scale, for almost nothing. But here's what made it truly different. Shein's algorithm tracked which products got the most engagement on social media. When a dress started trending, they manufactured more of it within days. When interest dropped, they killed the line instantly. They were not guessing what people wanted. They were watching in real time. De Beers had to hire fashion editors and filmmakers to shape culture over decades. Shein watches your scrolling behavior and reshapes its entire product line in 72 hours. The principles are identical. The precision is not. Every piece of content you consume has been optimized, not for your enjoyment, for your engagement, for the likelihood that you click, share, buy, or come back. The thumbnail on the video you are watching right now was chosen from multiple options based on which one performed best in testing. The title was written to trigger a specific psychological response. The hook was designed to beat the 30-second drop-off point where most viewers leave. This is not sinister. It is just the game. Understanding it is not depressing. It is useful. Because once you understand how marketing works, you stop being a passive recipient and start being a conscious one. You still buy things. You still feel emotions about brands. But you make the choice with your eyes open. The 3 things that actually work. So if you wanted to use marketing, whether for a business, a personal brand, or a side project, what actually matters? 1. Know who you are talking to before you say anything. Not everyone, one person. The specific human being whose problem you solve, whose identity you reflect, whose fear you remove. The more precisely you can define that person, the more every word you write lands like it was written for them specifically. Because it was. 2. Sell the outcome, not the object. Nobody wants your product. They want what your product does to their life. The confidence, the time, the status, the relief. Lead with that. Every time. 3. Consistency beats creativity. The Marlboro Man ran for over 40 years. A Diamond is Forever ran for decades. Red Bull has used the same brand positioning since 1987. The temptation is to keep changing, keep refreshing, keep innovating the message. The brands that win stay the same long after it feels boring to the people making them, because the audience is always seeing it for the first time. Marketing is not manipulation. It is not deception. At its best, it is matching what already exists with what people already want. The need for energy, the desire to prove love, the wish to feel masculine or powerful or free. The product does not create those needs. It just raises its hand and says, I am the thing that gives you that. Your job, if you are ever in the business of selling anything, is to raise your hand clearly, consistently, in the language of the person you are trying to reach. Do that long enough, and they will find you, and think it was their idea.